speaking of Zephyr, the thing I was intrigued about too is that this is one of, if not the first things I ever saw feature film wise of rap. And
Yeah,
it's very multicultural, but of course, that isn't always presented in the media or in a lot of
yeah.
depictions. So for you, was that just natural? Did you make a conscious effort to make it multicultural? What ended up? What was the reasoning behind that?
The casting started really with Lee. And Lee was someone that I was obsessed with because I had made a kung fu movie around his murals, and I was very interested in what he represented. And he was, he was multicultural. He had in himself all cultures. You could say if you go back into his family, he would have black and white, and he would have certainly deep Puerto Rican roots. But he was also a mad b-boy when he was young, and he was in the same kung fu school of the guy that I worked with in the movie. So he had all this in him. But going out from that, it was a matter of like, Busy Bee was was probably the first person I cast. And it's like, I walked into this park with Fred, and it was nighttime, and we heard in the park, there was like this dub music that was playing down on this, it's a big wide open park area with rolling hills. And then we could hear dub music over there, and we could hear James Brown music coming over to the right. So we just took a right. We didn't go to, we should have gone over to where the dub music was and made Wild Style over there. And that would have been a different movie. And maybe that would be a better movie. But instead, we went to the right because we heard the James Brown, and we identified it as a hip hop scene. And what happened was, it was like a miniature event of the final scene in the movie. It was like a little amphitheater, and Busy Bee was next to the stage. And the way he likes to tell the story is, he likes to say that he was sweating bullets because he thought I was the police, because he had a lit joint in his hand, and he thought I was going to bust him because of the lit joint. And he said, "What's up?" And I said, "I'm Charlie Ahearn, and I'm making I'm making a movie about the hip hop scene." So he puts his arm around me, and he walks right out on stage. He walks me right out into the middle. Whatever was going on stage, who knows what it was, but he walked me out. He grabbed the microphone, and he says, "I want you to meet Charlie Ahearn. He's my film producer, and we're making a movie about the rap scene." That's exactly how it went down. And that's true of everything in the movie.
So with Busy Bee, I got a quick Baltimore.
In other words, he didn't know me, I didn't know him. That's how much it took. He was willing to believe that I was a film producer, which I wasn't. And I was willing to believe that he was a master MC.
Interesting. Now with Busy Bee in Wild Style, the first or the early scenes we see him performing,
Yes.
I wanted to get from a director, a cinematography perspective, director of photography, all these things. Were the red lights the ones they had? Were those the house lights, or did you shoot it that way for a reason?
Yes. These places often had very little light. The typical lighting at the Ecstasy Garage, which is where I went mostly, had like a light bulb clipped over the DJ. And that's the only light they had. No stage lights. You know what I'm saying? In other words, it was a big dark room full of teenagers drinking 40s. They weren't 40s then, they were like 20s. They were 20s, not 40s, 20s, but they were teenagers. And Grand Wizard Theodore was scratch mixing. and he was scratch mixing the most sophisticated music that anyone could be listening to. A lot of that music was from the 70s, and it was in their parents' record collections, and he was scratch mixing it, which was like, it was like very sophisticated music. And that's what it was. So the next person that I really got to be close with was Grandmaster Kaz. And I went to Grandmaster Kaz's house, and it was right next to the basketball court. And I told him I was really interested in the basketball court, and I wanted to do a scene in the basketball court that was rapping. And he said, this is where I always practice. You know, I go and shoot, I shoot balls into the hoop while I'm thinking of rhymes. And he brought me upstairs, which was right next to that park, to where he lived with his parents, his godparents. And he opened up a closet, and the closet was stacked all the way to the ceiling with sneakers. And next to the sneakers was a big stack of hats that matched each of the sneakers. And next to that was a big stack of those composition books. And he pulled them out of the closet and threw them across the bed. And there was, like, let's say 8 composition books. And if you opened each composition books, they were done in perfect penmanship, very beautiful writing, which meant he did not write those as he didn't use it as a scratch. He wasn't composing. He would already have the rhyme written from the basketball court, and he'd come home and then write it out. And then it would be done. He would never change it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's how he did it. But he was one of the best. And that's why I did the basketball scene, was to express the extreme rivalry between the Fantastic and the Cold Crush. And the truth is, as you can see behind me, the truth is that all those people were all best friends in junior high. In other words, they knew all of each other, and they were all in each other's groups. And if you go back to see these flyers behind me, this is one of my paintings.
Yeah.
And that's Dada Rock in the middle. And that's Dada Rock posing in front of his flyer collection, which is from a photograph that I took in 1980. And if you go to these flyers and look up close, the names, Dada Rock was in the Fantastic, Kaz was in the Cold Crush. But if you go back, all those people were in each other's groups. You know what I mean?
Yeah, when I interviewed Prince Whip, I told him later, as I grew up and I started to learn who was where and who was in what groups.
Yeah.
I told Prince Whip, I was like, man, you were in so many groups, it was hard for me to make sure I was keeping track of the right guy. So since he was,
yeah, but he's one of the best MCs alive.
Yeah,
he is great. He's a wonderful MC. He can MC in Spanish, and he can MC. He could MC for hours and not even slow down. He's one of the best. And Kaz was very good friends with this guy, in other words, they were best friends, even though they seemed to be so at each, and it's true, when they did the basketball scene, they did want to really kill each other. That is, creatively, they wanted to cold crush the other person so that no one would ever want to listen to them again, because they were so much better than the other. But that's what makes hip hop.
Yeah, I also thought it was interesting the way it was staged, with them coming kind of like a chorus line type of thing. So,
yeah.
So visually and aesthetically, as a director, how did you come up with that presentation of it?
Well, it's a typical gang move, if two gangs are coming up, and there was always this thing that the gangs did, that there would be two lines of gangs, and then someone had to run through them. I forget what that's called. And people would beat on them when they'd run past. So that was kind of a thing that I was thinking of, is the idea of two gangs coming to each other. And it's sort of supposed to have sort of a flavor of West Side Story and the gangs in West Side Story. And you're supposed to think that they're gonna fight, but we know they aren't.
Right. Okay. Gotcha. And then when in the film, the character that's the reporter,
Yes,
when
Patty.
when Patty's car breaks down, did was that something you had planned, or was that just a spontaneous thing to have the kids push it and it broke down, or was that in your imagination?
Absolutely, it was written. I have the sheet of paper in which it's all diagrammed, and the dialogue is all written the day before.
Okay.
So it was meant to be where it was, and we shot it in one spot because we wanted the car to rest there. And then when I came to, and they pushed the car down the block, right? But then there's a scene of her coming down with the kids. And in other words, I had her drive it around and drive to a place where it sort of was downhill. And then we had the kids all push it down in front of the Dixie, because people don't know. And it's crazy that I did those things, because people could have been hurt or something could have happened. And I guess I will always be like held accountable. In an alternative universe, there will be angry people because I did these things that I was taking great risks with not only myself, but everyone else.
Well, that's true, because I remember part of the reason why I thought about it was when I first saw the film, I remember one or two kids actually fall down in those initial scenes. And I was like, whoa, that could have been a problem.
But you know that we only shot that once.
Oh,
Of course, you could only do that once. Now, the basketball scene we shot 9 times. And the only reason why we used that last take is it's the only one they finished. So that Kaz goes, play ball. He goes like this, and someone throws him the ball and he goes, play ball. And then that's the take. But it was the only time up to that point, while they were going down the line, if one of the MCs flubbed their lines, they would go like this and do something that made it, ruin it.
okay.
So I said, please don't do that. Let's just try to finish it. Let's do the whole thing once. We only did it once.
Fair enough. And also there's a theme too about doing stuff for the community, and making the community better through art.
Right.
So both for the hip hop scene at the time and then yourself as a person, why was that, do you think, important or integral into
So there was a lot of things that were at stake right at that point. There was already a sense that street art was going to get commercial, and that street art could become a way to make money, and that people could make money from doing street art. But there was also a sense that street art had this powerful role in the community in terms of how it could represent values that the community held in common, which the amphitheater was a real place. And it really was, it was not a place where people performed. That was all made up for the movie. That was completely crazy. I had originally been brought to this place in the Bronx by Fred, which is where I met Busy Bee, and was this little amphitheater. And then Lee said, I brought Lee there to show him, because there were some walls, and I said, you're going to do some things on these walls. And he said, I have to show you my amphitheater. So the next day we went to this place, which is the actual amphitheater used in the movie. And I walked in and my heart just went into my shoes. I just felt oh my God. I'm being challenged by this. Because I have no idea, how would you fill this with people? How would you light this? How would you have people on stage? It would require a big movie. How would you light this place? How do we paint this? It's so vast. I thought, what if we shot the scene and 50 people or 100 people show up? What is it going to look like on film? Do you know what I mean? It required a very high level of faith, which I had, but it was challenged by all that.
Be sure to check out the History of Gangster Rap by Soren Baker. He's official.
History of Gangster Rap features exclusive interviews with Ice-T, Snoop Dogg, MC Ren, the D.O.C, and dozens of others. The History of Gangster Rap, a definitive look at how Los Angeles changed rap forever.
In Los Angeles, the streets definitely set the tone of the hip-hop music.
At 19, I got a $50,000 car.
My whole angle always was, I'll be street, but I will always tell you the horrors that go along with this life.
There will be penalties and casualties for just wearing the wrong color in somebody's neighborhood.
And once gangster rap made it from the streets to the TV, the genre exploded.
With Fab 5 on Your MTV Raps with NWA.
Yo MTV, it just catapulted us from being local heroes to national gangbang rappers.
The History of Gangster Rap discusses it all from 1980 up till today.
It's always gonna be shit happening in the streets. You know what I mean? So it's always gonna be something to talk about.
The History of Gangster Rap in stores now.